The Koran system pulsed with activity. Zarian patrol vessels sliced through the darkness between worlds, their quantum drives leaving faint blue ionization trails against the backdrop of stars. Colonel Helena Voss stood on the observation deck of the Earth Interplanetary Patrol Vessel, vigilant, watching the distant lights of Zarian ships through reinforced transparasteel. Even at this distance, the power of their empire was unmistakable. Colonel, incoming transmission from Earth Command, Lieutenant Reyes announced from the communications console. Helena adjusted her uniform and nodded. Put it through. The holographic display flickered to life, revealing Admiral Chen's stern face. His expression told her everything before he spoke a word. Colonel Voss, I'm afraid I have grave news. New Arcadia has fallen. The words hung in the recycled air of the ship. Helena felt her heart rate accelerate as the meaning sank in. Fallen Admiral New Arcadia has a full garrison and planetary defense grid. How could it? The Zarians launched a surprise attack 2 hours ago. They bypassed the outer sensor grid using some kind of phase cloaking technology we've never seen before. By the time our forces detected them, they had already deployed tactical antimatter warheads against all major population centers. Helena gripped the edge of the console. Casualties. The Admiral's face hardened. Total. All 52,000 colonists and military personnel. The settlement has been completely obliterated. The observation deck seemed to tilt beneath Helena's feet. New Arcadia had been humanity's most ambitious frontier colony, a symbol of Earth's expansion into the galactic community. Established as part of the peace accords with the Zarian Empire, it represented coexistence and cooperation. Now it was gone. This is a clear violation of the Galactic Alliance Treaty. Helena said, her voice steady despite the shock. What is Earth's response? The War Council is convening now. You're being recalled immediately, Colonel. The Vigilant is the closest Earth vessel to Zarian space. We need your first-hand intelligence on their current military deployments. Helena nodded. We'll set course immediately, Admiral. The transmission ended, leaving Helena alone with the weight of what had happened. She turned back to the observation window, looking at the distant Zarian ships with new eyes. They no longer seemed like the patrol vessels of a cautious neighbor. They were predators waiting for their next opportunity to strike. Lieutenant Reyes. She called, her voice carrying the authority of 17 years in Earth service. Plot a course for Earth, maximum safe velocity, and put the ship on combat alert. Combat alert. Colonel Reyes questioned, hands already moving across the navigation controls. Yes, Lieutenant. As of 2 hours ago, the peace between Earth and the Zarian Empire is over. As the Vigilant altered course, Helena couldn't help but think of the families on New Arcadia. The scientists, the farmers, the children. People who had volunteered to build a new world on the frontier. People who had trusted in peace. People who were now nothing but atomic particles scattered across an irradiated wasteland. The journey back to Earth took 11 days at full burn each hour, stretching Helena's nerves further. The ship buzzed with tension as news of New Arcadia's destruction spread through the crew. Some wept openly for friends stationed at the colony. Others spoke in hushed tones of vengeance. Helena maintained her composure, but inside, a cold fury was building. She had served during the 10-year war against the Zarians, had seen their brutality firsthand, but even then, they had observed basic principles of warfare. Civilian targets were considered off-limits. The destruction of an entire colony without warning or provocation represented something different, something that couldn't go unanswered. When the blue-green sphere of Earth finally appeared on their view screens, Helena felt none of the usual relief of homecoming. Today, she was bringing news of humanity's greatest loss since the Mars colony disaster of 2312. The War Council was already in session when Helena arrived at the United Earth Defense Command headquarters in Geneva. The massive underground complex hummed with activity officers and officials moving with the coordinated urgency that follows catastrophe. Helena was escorted directly to the central chamber, where 12 figures sat around a circular table. She recognized most of them: General Ria Salim, the fiery commander of Earth's offensive forces. Li Mei, the diplomatic minister who had helped negotiate the peace with the Zarians. Director Kwame Okonkwo of Intelligence Services, and others representing every facet of Earth's defense and governance. Admiral Chen acknowledged her with a nod as she entered. Colonel Voss, thank you for making such good time. Please brief the council on what you observed at the border before the attack. Helena stood at attention, delivering her report with military precision. She described the increased Zarian fleet movements she had observed over the past month, the unusual deployment patterns, the communications blackouts. In retrospect, the signs of impending action had been there, but no one had interpreted them as preparation for a genocidal strike. When she finished, the chamber fell silent until General Salim slammed her fist on the table. This was premeditated mass murder, she declared, her voice vibrating with barely contained rage. The Zarians have been planning this for months, while pretending to honor the peace accords. We must respond with immediate and overwhelming force. Li Mei leaned forward, her diplomatic training evident in her measured tone. While I share your outrage, General, we must be careful not to escalate this into a full-scale war that could cost billions more lives. We should demand an explanation from the Zarian Empire through the Galactic Alliance channels. There may be factors we don't understand. Bah, factors. General Salim interrupted, incredulous. What possible justification could there be for annihilating 52,000 civilians? This wasn't a military miscalculation. It was extermination. The debate intensified, with the council splitting into factions. Some supported immediate military retaliation. Others advocated for diplomatic pressure, and a third group suggested a middle path of covert operations to gather more intelligence before committing to action. Helena stood silently watching the power dynamics unfold until Admiral Chen turned to her. Colonel Voss, you've spent more time observing the Zarians than anyone else in this room. What's your assessment of their intentions? All eyes turned to her. Helena took a moment to order her thoughts before speaking. The Zarians respect only one thing: power, she said finally. During the war, we fought them to a standstill, which is why they agreed to peace. They've been testing our resolve ever since, with minor treaty violations and border incursions. New Arcadia wasn't just a target of opportunity, it was a message. They're telling us they no longer fear Earth's response. She paused, looking around the table. If we respond weakly or predictably, they'll take it as confirmation. More colonies will fall. We need to show them that their calculation was wrong, in a way they can't ignore. The council chamber buzzed with murmured conversations, until Director Okonkwo raised his hand for silence. I may have relevant intelligence, he said quietly. For the past year, we've detected unusual energy signatures from the Koran system, the heart of Zarian territory. Our analysts believe they're developing something called a radiation star, essentially a weaponized stellar mass that could destroy entire planets. If they perfect this technology, New Arcadia could be just the beginning. New tension filled the room as the implications sank in. A weapon that could target Earth itself from across the galaxy would fundamentally alter the balance of power. We need proof before we act on this, Li Mei insisted. Allegations of a superweapon could be seen as justification for aggressive action on our part. General Salim shook her head. By the time we have ironclad proof, it could be too late. We need to act now. Admiral Chen raised his hand, silencing the debate. Colonel Voss, I'm assigning you a new mission. Take the Vigilant and gather the intelligence we need about this radiation star technology. Operate under stealth protocols and report directly to this council. In the meantime, we'll prepare contingency plans for various response scenarios. Helena nodded, understanding the subtext. The Admiral was giving the diplomats time to work through official channels, while also preparing for military action if necessary. I'll need specialized equipment and personnel, she said, including someone who understands stellar physics. You'll have whatever you need, the Admiral promised. You depart in 48 hours. As the council adjourned, Helena found herself approached by a tall, thin man with piercing eyes and a distracted manner. He introduced himself as Dr. Emil Navarro, Earth's leading expert on experimental physics. "I understand you're heading back to Zarian space," he said without preamble. "I'd like to join your mission." Helena raised an eyebrow. "This isn't a research expedition, Doctor. We'll be operating in hostile territory." "Which is precisely why you need me," Navarro replied. "If the Zarians are manipulating stellar matter as a weapon, I'm one of the few humans who might understand how they're doing it, and how to counter it." Helena studied him, noting the intensity in his eyes. "This mission could turn dangerous very quickly." "So could staying home if the Zarians perfect their weapon," he countered. "Besides, I have a personal stake in this. My brother and his family were on New Arcadia." That settled it. Helena nodded. "Report to the Vigilant tomorrow morning. Pack light, but bring whatever equipment you need for analysis." The next 2 days passed in a blur of preparation. The Vigilant was retrofitted with enhanced stealth systems and sensor packages. Helena personally selected a crew of combat veterans and technical specialists who could operate under the extreme pressure of covert operations in enemy territory. As they prepared to depart, news arrived that further inflamed the situation: an attempted assassination of the Zarian representative to the Galactic Alliance. The diplomat had survived, but the Zarian Empire immediately blamed Earth, using the incident to justify their attack on New Arcadia as a preemptive defense against human aggression. The claim was transparent propaganda. The attack on New Arcadia had occurred before the assassination attempt, but it complicated Earth's diplomatic position and raised the prospect of a wider war involving other galactic powers. "This changes nothing about your mission," Admiral Chen told Helena during their final briefing. "If anything, it makes your intelligence gathering more crucial. We need to understand what we're facing before we commit to a response." Helena nodded, though she could see in the Admiral's eyes that military options were moving to the forefront of Earth's planning. The assassination attempt, likely carried out by a grieving relative of someone lost on New Arcadia, had reduced the diplomatic pathways available. 46 hours after her arrival on Earth, Helena was back aboard the Vigilant, this time, with Dr. Navarro and a reconfigured mission profile. They slipped away from Earth's orbital defensive grid, under communications blackout, their heading set for the edge of Zarian space. "We'll approach through the Vega corridor," Helena explained to her officers during the mission briefing. "It's a longer route, but the stellar radiation will help mask our approach. Once we reach the outer boundary of the Corin system, we'll deploy our long-range sensors and passive monitoring drones." Lieutenant Reyes raised a hand. "What exactly are we looking for, Colonel?" Helena nodded to Dr. Navarro, who activated a holographic display showing a star with unusual energy patterns emanating from its corona. "This is a simulation of what we believe the Zarians are attempting to create," Navarro explained. "By introducing certain isotopes into a star's fusion cycle, they can create a cascading reaction that produces directed radiation bursts. Essentially, they're turning stars into weapons." The officers exchanged concerned glances. One of them, Commander Torres, leaned forward. "Is this even possible? Manipulating a star seems beyond even Zarian technology." "Theoretically, it's possible," Navarro confirmed. "My team at the Institute had been researching similar concepts for energy production, not weaponization. If the Zarians have solved the containment problems, they could project devastating radiation across vast distances. No conventional shield could stop it." The briefing continued with technical details and mission protocols, but the central question remained unspoken. If the Zarians had indeed developed a stellar weapon, how could Earth possibly respond? The journey to the edge of Zarian space took 17 days, during which Helena drilled her crew relentlessly on stealth protocols and emergency procedures. Unlike their previous patrol mission, Discovery now meant certain death or worse capture and interrogation that could compromise Earth's defensive preparations. Dr. Navarro spent most of his time in the makeshift laboratory they had set up, calibrating the specialized sensors he had brought and running simulations. Helena found him there late in the ship's night cycle, staring at equations flowing across multiple screens. "You should get some rest, Doctor," she said, offering him a cup of synthetic coffee. "We'll reach the Corin system perimeter in less than 30 hours. Navarro accepted the drink absently, his eyes never leaving the displays. "I may have identified their method," he said. "They're using quantum-entangled particles to influence stellar matter at the subatomic level. It's brilliant, actually. Horrifying, but brilliant." Helena studied the equations, understanding little of the advanced physics. "Can it be stopped?" "Not conventionally," Navarro admitted. "But there might be a way to reverse the process." He hesitated, then looked directly at Helena for the first time. "Colonel, what exactly is Earth planning as a response to New Arcadia?" Helena maintained her neutral expression. "That depends on what we discover." "I understand operational security," Navarro pressed. "But if I'm to provide useful analysis, I need context. Are we gathering intelligence for a diplomatic response, a targeted military strike, or something else?" Something in his tone made Helena consider her answer carefully. "All options are being considered," she said finally, "including, I believe, options that might require your expertise." Navarro nodded slowly. "I suspected as much when I was selected for this mission. They don't send theoretical physicists on reconnaissance missions unless they're planning something unconventional." "Does that concern you, Doctor?" Helena asked, studying his reaction. "What concerns me is making sure whatever happens next doesn't start a chain reaction we can't stop," he replied. "Whether that's a Zarian stellar weapon or an Earth response." Helena couldn't argue with that. Whatever was coming, the stakes extended far beyond New Arcadia, or even Earth. This conflict had the potential to reshape the power balance in the galaxy. The Vigilant reached the outer boundary of the Coran system, right on schedule, powering down to minimal operations to avoid detection. They deployed a network of passive sensors, disguised as space debris, feeding data back to the ship through quantum-encrypted channels. For 3 days, they collected information, building a comprehensive picture of Zarian activities throughout the system. Helena watched with growing concern as the evidence mounted unusual energy readings from the Coran star specialized vessels, moving between the star and various military installations and communications traffic that suggested a major operation in progress. On the 4th day, Dr. Navarro called an emergency meeting with Helena and her senior officers. "We've confirmed it," he announced without preamble, activating a holographic display of the Coran star. "The Zarians have successfully created a controlled radiation pathway through the star's corona. Based on the energy signatures, they could target any system within 50 light-years, including Earth." He manipulated the display, showing a simulation of the weapon's capabilities. Once fully operational, they could sterilize an inhabited planet without warning. No defense system could stop it. Commander Torres voiced what everyone was thinking. How close are they to full operation? "Days, maybe hours," Navarro replied grimly. "They're running final calibration tests now." Helena made her decision immediately. "Prepare a comprehensive data package for transmission to Earth Command. Include all sensor readings, Dr. Navarro's analysis, and tactical assessments of Zarian defensive positions." While her officers carried out her orders, Helena recorded her own report, laying out the situation in stark terms. The Zarians had developed a weapon that could target Earth directly, rendering conventional defenses useless. The destruction of New Arcadia had likely been a test of human resolve before unveiling their new capability. She transmitted the package through a narrow-beam quantum channel, designed to be virtually undetectable, but limited to light speed. It would take days for the message to reach Earth, and days more for any response to return. In the meantime, Helena ordered the Vigilant to continue monitoring the situation, while maintaining absolute stealth. They watched as Zarian activity around the star intensified, confirming Navarro's assessment that the weapon was nearing completion. 5 days after sending their report with no response yet possible from Earth, Helena was awakened by an urgent call from the sensor officer. "Colonel, we're detecting a new vessel entering the system. It's one of ours." Fully alert instantly, Helena rushed to the bridge. On the main display, she saw a Earth military transport ship moving openly through Zarian space, broadcasting no identification, but unmistakably of human design. "What the hell are they doing?" Commander Torres muttered. "They might as well paint a target on themselves." Helena shared his confusion until a coded transmission reached them. "Vigilant, this is Prometheus delivery. Package inbound. Maintain position and prepare for rendezvous at coordinates to follow. Authentication code, Thermopylae." The code was valid, a direct order from Earth Command. Whatever Prometheus was, it had the highest possible authorization. The rendezvous occurred 16 hours later in the shadow of one of Quran's outer planets. The transport approached silently matching velocities with the Vigilant before extending a docking tube. No communications were exchanged. The fewer transmissions, the less chance of detection. Helena met the transport's commander personally. Major Diaz was a member of Earth's Special Mission Forces, his expression grim as he handed over a sealed data crystal and a set of paper orders, actual physical documents, impossible to hack or intercept electronically. "Direct from the War Council, Colonel," he said quietly. "Your eyes only." In her quarters, Helena reviewed the orders with growing astonishment. The crystal contained technical specifications for a device the transport had brought, something called the Prometheus package, along with detailed implementation instructions. Earth had made its decision. There would be no diplomatic response, no conventional military strike. Instead, they had devised something unprecedented, a stellar conversion device designed to trigger a cascading reaction in the Quran star itself. Put simply, Earth planned to destroy a star to eliminate the Zarian threat. Helena read the scientific explanation several times, understanding just enough to grasp the magnitude of what they were proposing. The device would inject antimatter and modified quantum particles directly into the star's core, reversing its fusion process and causing it to collapse before exploding in a controlled nova. The resulting energy release would destroy everything in the Quran system. It was genocide on a scale never before contemplated. Helena's hand trembled slightly as she activated the secured communication link to speak with Admiral Chen, who was waiting for her call. "I've received the package and orders," she said, keeping her voice steady with effort. "Request confirmation and clarification of intent." The Admiral's face on the screen was a mask of contained fury. "Intent is clear, Colonel. The Zarians have developed a weapon that can strike Earth without warning. They've already demonstrated their willingness to commit genocide at New Arcadia. This is the only response that ensures our survival. Sir, we're talking about destroying an entire star system. Quran Prime has a population of over 3 billion. And Earth has 11 billion, Chen replied flatly. The War Council's decision was unanimous, Colonel. Even Minister Li Mei voted in favor, after reviewing your intelligence. This isn't about revenge for New Arcadia. It's about preventing the extinction of humanity." Helena took a deep breath. "Is evacuation being offered?" "We've transmitted a warning through Galactic Alliance channels. Any Zarians who can evacuate in the next 72 hours will be spared. Those are your implementation orders, Colonel. 72 hours, then activation." The transmission ended, leaving Helena alone with the weight of what had been ordered. She sat motionless for several minutes, then called for Dr. Navarro. When she explained the Prometheus device, she expected shock or moral objection. Instead, Navarro nodded slowly, as if confirming a suspicion. "I wondered if they'd attempt something like this," he said quietly. "The theoretical work has existed for years, using antimatter to reverse stellar fusion. We called it the Star Killer concept. It was purely theoretical, a thought experiment to understand stellar dynamics." "Can it work?" Helena asked. "Yes," Navarro confirmed, his voice barely audible. "With the right delivery system and precise calculation, it can work. The Quran star will collapse, then explode. Nothing in the system will survive." "You don't seem surprised that Earth would authorize this." Navarro met her gaze directly. After seeing what the Zarians did to New Arcadia, after confirming they plan to do the same to Earth on a larger scale, No, Colonel. I'm not surprised. I'm horrified by the necessity, but not by the decision. Over the next 24 hours, Helena briefed her senior officers, while Dr. Navarro worked with the technical team from the transport to prepare the Prometheus device. The plan was precision itself. The Vigilant would approach the Coron star under stealth, deploy the device at a specific entry vector, then withdraw to a safe distance before activation. Commander Torres voiced the concern that many felt, but few had articulated. Colonel, is this who we are now, destroyers of stars? Helena had been asking herself the same question since reading her orders. This isn't about who we are, she answered finally. It's about ensuring we continue to exist at all. The Zarians gave us no choice when they developed a weapon that could sterilize Earth without warning. As the deadline approached, Helena maintained regular observation of Zarian communications. As expected, their warning through Galactic Alliance channels had been dismissed as a bluff or psychological warfare. There was no mass evacuation from Coron Prime, no indication that the Zarian leadership took the threat seriously. They had grown too accustomed to being the most technologically advanced species in known space. The notion that humans could threaten their home system seemed absurd to them. 48 hours after receiving her orders, Helena gave the command to begin the approach to the Coron star. The Vigilant moved silently through the system, its stealth systems operating at maximum efficiency. They passed Zarian defense platforms and patrol vessels without detection, coming within visual range of Coron Prime itself, a gleaming world of vast cities and orbital installations. Helena found herself staring at the planet on the view screen, thinking of the billions of lives about to end. Many would be civilians, ordinary Zarians who had no role in their government's decisions or military actions. The philosophical weight of what they were about to do settled over the bridge like a physical presence. We all feel it, Dr. Navarro said quietly, standing beside her chair. The responsibility, the doubt. It's what separates us from them, Colonel. The Zarians destroyed New Arcadia without hesitation or regret. We question ourselves even as we prepare to do what must be done. Helena nodded, drawing strength from his words. The mission continued, bringing them into optimal position relative to the Coron star. The final approach would be the most dangerous. They would need to penetrate the star's outer magnetic field, which was heavily monitored by Zarian science vessels, studying the modifications they had made for their weapon. Final system check, Helena ordered, as they prepared for the last phase. Stealth systems at maximum. Prometheus package ready for deployment. The bridge crew reported readiness, their voices tight with tension. The Vigilant slipped deeper into the star's gravitational well sensors, constantly scanning for any sign they had been detected. They were less than 30 minutes from deployment when the alarm sounded. Multiple Zarian vessels changing course, Lieutenant Reyes reported urgently. They're moving to intercept our position. They've detected us. Helena's mind raced through options. How many vessels? What class? 3 heavy cruisers and supporting craft, Torres replied. Weapon systems activating. There was no possibility of outrunning or outfighting such a force. The Vigilant was a patrol and reconnaissance vessel, not a warship. Their only advantage was the Prometheus device itself. Change of plans, Helena announced. Set course directly for optimal deployment coordinates, maximum speed. Prepare to deploy the package under fire. The ship surged forward, abandoning stealth for speed. The Zarian vessels adjusted course in pursuit, opening fire, with long-range energy weapons that streaked past the Vigilant's hull. They're trying to disable, not destroy, Navarro observed. They want to capture the ship. Helena nodded grimly. They want to know what we're doing here. That's good. It means they'll be cautious about using their heavier weapons near the star. The Vigilant shuddered as a glancing hit struck its aft section. Damage reports flooded in, but the ship maintained course and speed, drawing closer to their target zone. The Zarian vessels closed the gap, their superior firepower becoming more accurate with proximity. They're deploying some kind of neutron barrier ahead of us, Reyes warned. It's forming directly in our path. Helena turned to Navarro. Will it stop the Prometheus device? The physicist studied the sensor readings intently. Not if we're close enough when we deploy. The antimatter reaction will punch through. How close? Navarro calculated quickly. Within the star's corona boundary. But Colonel, at that range, the Vigilant won't survive the initial fusion reversal. The implication was clear. This had become a suicide mission. Helena took only a moment to process this before giving her next order. Set course directly for the corona boundary. All personnel not essential to navigation or the Prometheus deployment proceed to escape pods immediately. Commander Torres stared at her in shock. Colonel, the escape pods can't outrun the blast radius. No, but they can be recovered by the transport vessel waiting at the rendezvous point, Helena countered. Major Diaz is standing by. Most of the crew can survive this. Torres shook his head. With respect, Colonel, we all knew the risks when we accepted this mission. No one is leaving. Around the bridge, officers nodded in agreement. Helena felt a surge of pride in her crew, even as she calculated the odds of any of them surviving what came next. The Vigilant pushed forward, taking increasing damage as it approached the star. The heat inside the ship rose as their cooling systems failed under enemy fire, but they maintained their course directly toward the roiling surface of the Corin star. Prometheus deployment zone in 60 seconds. Navarro announced, his fingers flying across the control interface. The device is ready. The view screen showed the massive red-orange curve of the star filling their vision, its surface a churning sea of plasma and magnetic storms. Behind them, the Zarian vessels continued their pursuit, but were falling back, slightly unwilling to follow too close to the stellar boundary. They're realizing something is wrong, Helena observed. They know we shouldn't be on this trajectory. A new communication alert sounded. Incoming transmission from the lead Zarian vessel, Reyes reported. They're demanding our surrender. Helena ignored it, focusing on the countdown. 30 seconds to deployment zone. The ship lurched violently as a direct hit disabled one of their primary drive systems. Warning lights flashed across every console as structural integrity began to fail under the combined stresses of damage and the star's increasing gravitational pull. 15 seconds. Navarro called out, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. The device is primed and energy signature masked. They still don't know what we're carrying. Helena made her final decision. Lieutenant Reyes opened a channel to the Zarian command vessel. When the connection was established, she spoke clearly, wanting her words to be understood. Zarian Command, this is Colonel Helena Voss of Earth Interplanetary Patrol. You destroyed New Arcadia without warning or mercy. 52,000 humans, men, women, and children were erased in an act of unprovoked genocide. On the screen, the face of a Zarian commander appeared, his scaled features contorted in what Helena recognized as an expression of contempt. Your colony was a military outpost disguised as a settlement, he replied. Your surrender is... Helena cut him off. We are not surrendering. We are responding. Remember the name Prometheus. She cut the transmission as Navarro called out. Deployment zone reached. Deploy the package, Helena ordered. The ship shuddered as the Prometheus device launched, streaking directly into the star's chromosphere. For a brief moment, nothing happened. Then, instruments across the bridge began registering massive energy fluctuations as the antimatter reaction began disrupting the star's fusion processes at the quantum level. It's working, Navarro whispered, watching the cascading reaction spread through the stellar material. The quantum entanglement is propagating through the core faster than predicted. We have minutes, not hours. The pursuing Zarian vessels broke off their attack, clearly detecting the catastrophic changes beginning within their star. Some turned to flee, while others continued broadcasting urgent communications, trying to understand what was happening. Full reverse thrust, Helena commanded. Get us as far from the star as possible. The damaged Vigilant struggled to pull away from the star's gravity, its engines straining against the increasing gravitational fluctuations. On the view screen, They could see the star's surface beginning to ripple and distort as the fusion process reversed deep within its core. Structural integrity at 43% and falling, Torres reported. We won't clear the blast radius at this rate. Helena nodded, having already accepted this possibility. Focus power on communications. Broadcast everything we're recording back to the rendezvous coordinates. Earth needs to see the results. As the Vigilant limped away from the dying star, they witnessed something few beings had ever seen: the death of a stellar body. The Corin star's surface began to collapse inward as fusion failed, then rebounded in massive waves of plasma, as antimatter interactions created explosive new energy patterns. The Zarians are evacuating Corin Prime. Reyes reported monitoring long-range sensors. Thousands of ships launching. They finally understand what's happening. But it was too late. The star's collapse accelerated its massive gravitational field, fluctuating wildly as matter and antimatter annihilated each other in its core. The visual spectrum shifted, the red-orange glow deepening to an eerie purple as radiation levels spiked beyond any natural phenomenon. Final phase beginning. Navarro announced, his voice filled with scientific awe despite the circumstances. The gravity wave will hit us first, then the radiation front. Helena watched the star on the view screen, feeling a complex mixture of horror at what they had done, and satisfaction that Earth's response had been so absolute. The Zarians had believed they could destroy a human colony without consequences. Now, their entire home system was dying before their eyes. All hands brace for impact, she ordered, as the first gravitational shockwave approached. The wave hit like a physical blow, tossing crew members from their stations and causing further structural failures throughout the ship. Emergency systems activated, automatically sealing compromised sections and rerouting power to critical systems. Through it all, the Vigilant sensors and communications continued to function, recording and transmitting the death of the Coran system back to Earth. They captured the moment when the star's core finally collapsed, completely triggering a massive eruption of plasma and radiation that expanded outward at a significant fraction of light speed. The shockwave of superheated plasma engulfed Corin Prime before most of its population could evacuate, scouring the planet's surface down to bare rock. Orbital installations disintegrated instantly. The wave continued outward, consuming everything in its path: ships, space stations, other planets in the system. Aboard the crippled Vigilant, Helena and her surviving crew watched in silence as their sensors recorded the annihilation. They had succeeded in their mission, but the cost was beyond anything humanity had ever inflicted or endured. Radiation front approaching, Navarro said quietly. 90 seconds. Helena looked around at her crew, meeting each person's eyes in turn. It has been an honor serving with all of you, she said simply. What we've done today will be debated by historians for centuries, but know this: we acted to protect Earth from a threat that would have destroyed everything and everyone we love. The final minutes passed in a strange calm as they waited for the radiation wave to reach them. Some crew members recorded final messages for loved ones, though few expected the recordings to survive. Others simply sat at their posts, doing their duty to the last. Helena stood at the center of the bridge, watching the approaching wave of stellar material on the view screen. It was beautiful in its way, a roiling cloud of plasma energized to states rarely seen in nature, glowing with unearthly colors as elementary particles recombined in novel configurations. If there's an afterlife, Dr. Navarro mused beside her, I wonder if we'll meet the people of New Arcadia there. I wonder if we'll meet the people of Coran, Helena replied softly. The radiation front struck the Vigilant with the force of a small nova, overloading its sensors instantly. The last transmission from the ship cut off mid-data stream, leaving Earth Command with a final image of the expanding stellar remnant where the Coran system had been. But the Vigilant's message had been received. Across the galaxy, the news spread rapidly. Earth had destroyed an entire star system in retaliation for the loss of New Arcadia. The human species, previously considered technologically inferior to the Zarian Empire, had demonstrated the capacity and will to unmake a star itself. In the aftermath, as surviving Zarian vessels regrouped at their remaining outposts, they received a simple message broadcast on all frequencies from Earth. The destruction of New Arcadia has been answered. Any further acts of genocide against human settlements will be met with the same response without warning or negotiation. This is not a threat. It is a promise. 3 months later, Helena Voss stood before the Galactic Alliance Council, having survived against all odds. The Vigilant had been torn apart by the radiation front, but a protective bubble created by the ship's emergency systems had preserved part of the bridge section long enough for the transport vessel to locate and recover a handful of survivors. Helena, Navarro, and 3 others had been pulled from the wreckage, suffering severe radiation exposure, but alive. After weeks of medical treatment, they had returned to Earth as both heroes and living symbols of humanity's new status in galactic politics. The council chamber was filled with representatives from every major species, their attention fixed on the human officer as she delivered Earth's formal statement on the Koran incident. The human race regrets the necessity of our response to Zarian aggression. Helena stated, her voice carrying clearly through the vast chamber. We did not seek this conflict. We did not develop stellar weapons to threaten our neighbors. We acted only when faced with imminent extinction. She paused, looking directly at the Zarian representatives seated across the chamber. Their once proud posture was gone, replaced by the cautious demeanor of a species that had learned a harsh lesson about underestimating others. Earth remains committed to peaceful coexistence within the Galactic Alliance, Helena continued. But we will never again allow ourselves to be vulnerable to extinction-level threats. The technology we used at Koran has been documented and secured to be deployed only if another species attempts what the Zarian Empire tried to do. As she spoke, screens around the chamber displayed images of the Koran, remnant, a slowly expanding cloud of plasma, where a star system had once been. Within the cloud, sensors had detected an unusual pattern, plasma arranged in what appeared to be the outline of a human hand, created by the unique interaction of the Prometheus device with the star's magnetic field. It had not been planned, but the symbolism was unmistakable, the handprint of humanity burned into the cosmos as a warning. When the council session ended, Helena found Dr. Navarro waiting for her in the antechamber. His face was more lined than before their mission, his eyes carrying the weight of what they had witnessed and done. The Zarians have withdrawn their remaining forces from the border regions, he informed her. The Alliance is calling it the Koran Doctrine, the understanding that developing planet-killing weapons will be met with star-level retaliation. Helena nodded slowly. A balance of terror, then. Is this progress, Doctor? It's survival, Navarro replied. The universe isn't gentle or fair. Species survive by adaptation or deterrence. We've demonstrated the latter quite effectively. Together, they walked to the observation platform, overlooking the Alliance capital world, watching ships from dozens of species move through the orbital lanes. Among them were Zarian vessels now, maintaining strict flight paths and broadcasting identification continuously, a species learning new caution. What happens now? Helena asked, not really expecting an answer. Navarro considered the question seriously. We remember what we're capable of, he said finally, both the creation of New Arcadia and the destruction of Koran, and we choose every day which legacy we want to build upon. Helena thought of the 52,000 souls of New Arcadia and the billions lost at Koran. The math of survival was cold and terrible, but it had preserved Earth from a similar fate. Perhaps that was the best humanity could hope for in a universe where technology could multiply the power of both cooperation and conflict beyond all previous limits. We choose, she agreed quietly, watching the stars emerge as the planet rotated into nightfall. Among them was a faint smudge of light, the still expanding remnant of Koran, visible even at this distance. A cosmic warning label, written in the language of stellar fire. A warning that humanity had learned to speak the deadly language of the stars and would not hesitate to use it again if threatened with extinction. The Zarians had wiped out a human colony. Earth's response had erased a star system, and the galaxy would never be the same.